There are sins in your life right now that you do not even recognize as sins. Not the obvious ones. Not the ones everybody talks about in church. The hidden ones. The quiet ones. The ones that look completely normal from the outside but are silently blocking every single blessing God is trying to release into your life. And God right now in this season is exposing them. Not to shame you. Not to condemn you. But because He loves you too much to let them stay hidden any longer. Stay with me, because number 5 is the one that almost every Christian is guilty of, and almost nobody is talking about it. Most Christians think of sin the same way. They think of the big obvious things, the things that are clearly wrong, the things that everyone already knows are sins. And because they are not doing those things, they assume their life is spiritually clean. They assume there is nothing blocking their prayers. They assume that if God is not moving, it must be His timing and not their condition. But the Bible tells a very different story. Psalm chapter 19 verse 12. Who can discern their own errors? Forgive my hidden faults. Hidden faults. Errors we cannot discern on our own. Sins that are present in our lives that we are completely unaware of. David, a man after God's own heart, prayed specifically about sins he could not even see in himself. Because he understood something that most modern Christians have forgotten. The sins that do the most damage are often not the ones you are fighting against. They are the ones you do not even know you are carrying. And in this season, God is bringing them into the light. Not for judgment, for healing, for freedom, for the breakthrough that has been waiting on the other side of this exposure the entire time. Today we are going to look at 7 of them. Be honest with yourself as we go through each one. Because the one that makes you the most uncomfortable is probably the one God is trying to show you right now. Hidden sin number 1, the sin of selective obedience. This is the sin of obeying God in the areas that are convenient, and quietly ignoring Him in the areas that cost you something. You tithe faithfully, but you will not forgive the person who hurt you. You go to church every Sunday, but you will not have the honest conversation God has been telling you to have for months. You pray every morning, but you will not let go of the habit He has been convicting you about for years. You obey God on your terms, in your timing, in the areas where obedience does not require too much from you, and you call that a faithful life. 1 Samuel chapter 15 verse 22. To obey is better than sacrifice, and to heed is better than the fat of rams. God said obedience is better than sacrifice, better than your offering, better than your church attendance, better than every religious activity you bring to Him. Selective obedience is still disobedience. And it is one of the most common reasons blessings stay blocked in the lives of people who appear, from the outside, to be living completely for God. Hidden sin number 2, the sin of pride disguised as confidence. This one is almost impossible to see in yourself, because it does not feel like pride, feels like strength, feels like faith, feels like knowing who you are in God. But underneath it, there is a quiet resistance to correction, a subtle inability to receive instruction from anyone, a tendency to trust your own judgment over every other voice, including sometimes the voice of God. Proverbs chapter 16 verse 18. Pride goes before destruction and a haughty spirit before a fall. Pride does not always look like arrogance. Sometimes it looks like independence. Sometimes it looks like always having the answer. Sometimes it looks like never needing help. Sometimes it looks like being unable to say, I was wrong. I need guidance. I do not know what to do here. James chapter 4 verse 6. God opposes the proud but shows favor to the humble. God opposes the proud. Not ignores. Not overlooks. Poses. If God is opposing you, no strategy, no prayer, no amount of effort will produce breakthrough. Because you are working against the active resistance of God Himself. Humility is not weakness. It is the posture that opens the door to everything God has for you. Hidden sin number 3, the sin of unforgiveness buried under politeness. This is the sin that millions of American Christians are carrying right now, and calling it something else entirely. They are not rude to the person who hurt them. They are perfectly polite. They would never say they have not forgiven them. They might even pray for them occasionally. But deep in their heart, the wound is still open. The bitterness is still alive. The score is still being kept. And they have convinced themselves that because they are functioning normally, because they are not angry on the surface, the unforgiveness is not really there. But God sees the heart, not the performance. Matthew chapter 6 verse 15. But if you do not forgive others their sins, your Father will not forgive your sins. Will not forgive. Not might not. Will not. Unforgiveness does not just affect your relationship with the person who hurt you. It directly affects your relationship with God. It places a barrier between you and the Father that no amount of prayer or worship can penetrate, until the forgiveness is real. Not performed. Not polite. Real. Hidden sin number 4. The sin of worry dressed up as responsibility. Here is one that will surprise most people. Worry feels responsible. It feels like you are taking things seriously. It feels like the appropriate response to real problems and real uncertainty. But God called it sin. And Jesus addressed it more directly than almost any other issue in his entire ministry. Matthew chapter 6 verse 25. Therefore I tell you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or drink, or about your body, what you will wear. Do not worry. That is a command, not a suggestion, not an ideal to aspire to, a direct command from Jesus. And Philippians chapter 4 verse 6 makes it even clearer. Do not be anxious about anything, but in every situation by prayer and petition with thanksgiving present your requests to God. Do not be anxious about anything. Anything. Every moment you spend in worry is a moment you are choosing anxiety over trust. You are telling God with your thoughts, I do not actually believe you are in control of this. I do not actually trust that you are working. I need to carry this myself. That is a sin against the faithfulness of God. And it is one of the most common sins in the church today. Hidden sin number 5. The sin of idolizing comfort. This is the hidden sin that almost nobody is talking about. And it may be the most widespread sin in the American church today. Comfort has become an idol. Not money, not fame, not the obvious things people typically idolize. Comfort, ease, the avoidance of anything hard, inconvenient, or sacrificial. And it has gotten into the church so deeply that most Christians cannot even recognize it anymore. They choose the comfortable church over the one where God is actually moving. They choose the comfortable relationship over the one that requires growth. They choose the comfortable life over the calling that would require everything. Revelation chapter 3 verse 16. Because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. Lukewarm, the temperature of comfort. Not cold enough to be obviously away from God. Not hot enough to be genuinely on fire for him. Just warm enough to feel okay about where you are. God does not bless a comfortable, settled, risk-free version of faith. He blesses radical obedience. He blesses the people who are willing to be uncomfortable for the sake of what he called them to. If comfort has become more important to you than calling, that is an idol. And idols block blessings every single time. Hidden sin number 6. The sin of speaking death over your own life. Proverbs chapter 18 verse 21. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Life and death are in the power of the tongue. And you will eat the fruit of whatever you speak. Most Christians would never speak curses over someone else. But they speak them over themselves every single day without even realizing it. I am so stupid. I never get anything right. Nothing ever works out for me. I am always broke. I am always sick. I will never change. Every one of those statements is a seed. And every one of them grows into the exact reality you are confessing. God created the world with words. He made you in his image. And he gave you the same creative power in your tongue. The power to build up or tear down, to speak life or speak death, over your own future. What are you saying about yourself when nobody is listening? Because God is always listening. And the words you speak in private are shaping the life you will live in public. Hidden sin number 7. The sin of waiting on God for what God is waiting on you for. This is the final hidden sin. And the one that requires the most honest self-examination. Most Christians have a list of things they are waiting on God for. Breakthrough, direction, provision, open doors. But God has a list of things he is waiting on them for. The conversation they will not have. The step of faith they will not take. The apology they will not give. The habit they will not break. The person they will not forgive. The calling they will not pursue because it feels too risky. James chapter 4 verse 17. If anyone then knows the good they ought to do and does not do it, it is sin for them. Knowing the good you ought to do and not doing it is sin. Most Christians are not waiting on God. God is waiting on them. And the breakthrough they have been praying for is sitting on the other side of the obedience they have been delaying. 7 hidden sins. All of them quietly blocking the blessing God is trying to release into your life. Selective obedience. Pride disguised as confidence. Unforgiveness buried under politeness. Worry dressed up as responsibility. Idolizing comfort. Speaking death over your own life. And waiting on God for what God is waiting on you for. God is not exposing these things to condemn you. He is exposing them because He is ready to move in your life in a way He cannot move while these things are present. The exposure is the mercy. The discomfort you feel right now, reading this list and recognizing yourself in it, that is God loving you enough to show you what is in the way. So here is what you do right now. Pick the one that hit you hardest. Take it to God in honest prayer. Not performed prayer. Honest prayer. And ask Him to do what only He can do. Remove it completely and replace it with what belongs there. Because on the other side of this exposure, the blessing that has been waiting is finally ready to move. If this video showed you something that finally makes sense of a season that has felt stuck and blocked, share it with someone who needs to see it today. Comment below and tell me, which of the 7 hidden sins hit you the hardest? I read every single comment. Subscribe and turn on notifications because what is coming next goes even deeper into what God is doing in this season and why. God bless you, and I will see you in the next one.